Hello everybody and welcome back to Eric's Geography Vlog. Today's a special day because we're going to be doing 3 geography vlogs in one day. To start us off, we're going to be talking about the case study in the food and health section. This part of the syllabus is dedicated 4 hours, and quoting from the syllabus, we have to examine the variety of causes responsible for a recent famine. Today we're going to be talking about the Somalian famine in 2011, and I have my handy-dandy mind map that I made, so I'm going to be talking through it. The main causes of the Somalian famine were indeed environmental, as they were hit with the worst drought they had had in decades. In 2011, neither of the 2 rainy periods of the year, either in spring or autumn, came, meaning that there was a lack of water for both livestock and crop growth. This led to a complete production failure in crop growth, as only half as much crops were created in that year. Also, this resulted in the killing of 90% of their livestock and a massive drop in agricultural production. This lack of production due to a massive drought was the main cause of the Somalian famine in 2011. Next, we're going to move on to some demographic factors. One of the main problems demographically of the Somalian famine was that there were too many people for the country to be able to sustain. Essentially, the population went from 3.6 million to 10.5 million in the span of only 40 years. This means that between 1970 and now, the population increased by 3 times as much. This means that it was hard for the country to be able to produce enough food to sustain them. Other causes of the Somalian famine were indeed political. The presence and dominance of the Al-Shabaab in Somalia led to a very weakened and vulnerable state. The Al-Shabaab created a large divide in the country, as many clans were pitted against each other in the hunt for crops and livestock. This means that the people that were most vulnerable were marginalized and left to starve. Another of the major causes of the Somalian famine were, of course, economical, as most of their assets, which were mainly crops and livestock, were dead because of the drought. Somalia has also been affected by massive inflation, which was further worsened in a 2007 spike, which they hadn't yet recovered from. Somalia had a very difficult time dealing with their internal struggles, and therefore they sort of needed external help. However, even though the UN needed over $1 billion to provide substantial aid or helpful aid to Somalia, they were only able to accumulate less than 200 million to fulfill immediate needs. Essentially, Somalia had very little purchasing power, a lot of dead assets, and very limited financial support from outside aid. So, to recap, the major causes of the Somalian famine in 2011 were the presence of a civil war that engulfed the entire country, in which the Al-Shabaab dominated or took control of the country, the worst drought that they had experienced in decades, which led to massive production failure, the fact that the population had risen by 3 times as much in the last 40 years, and as well as the lack of significant financial aid from external sources. Make sure you review this famine because it could be very useful for potential paper 2 questions, and see you next time when we will discuss vulnerability.